1, 2, 1, 2. Apologies for that. I think most could hear me anyway. First of all, could I ask that all mobiles are turned onto silent or off? As I said, this is an extraordinary meeting of the Council called under petitioning arrangements, and we will only be discussing the Glamis Hall situation. This is, for all those not familiar, this is a debating chamber, and I require that you all respect each and every speaker. After the speakers have spoken, the Council will debate the options, and there is no public involvement at this debate. At the conclusion of the debate, councillors will make a decision. So now moving on to the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, apologies.
I'm just about to ask for apologies, Councillor Hawkes. Thank you very much. I have apologies from Councillors Ainge, Allibone, Byrne, Gough, Partridge Underwood, Warwick and Watts.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Warwick did speak to me and asked me to say that he's now at home from the recuperation centre. He's very sorry not to be with us, but the doctor has advised him to have a few weeks taking it easy. He sends his regards.
Thank you very much. I'm sure I offer the wishes of all councillors and members of the public who are aware of Councillor Warwick, and Councillor Hawkes' comments are well presented. Thank you very much, and do give him our best wishes. Declarations of interest. No declarations? Okay. So item 2 on the agenda, questions and presentations from speakers. Our first speaker is Heather Saunders. If you'd like to come to the table. Heather, you have 3 minutes to speak. Starting when the lady presses the button. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of the Save Glamis Hall Committee, I'd like to make 4 points to members and offer our proposal. Point 1, the illegal decision. 10,000 signatures prove that this is a matter of great public interest, and according to the Council's Constitution, Section 3.2.01d, the decision should have been made by the full Council. The judicial review will go ahead if members do not reverse their decision and direct their officers to work with us for the continuation of the daycare service at Glamis Hall. Point 2, the flawed consultation. The consultation questions contravene the Market Research Society's Code of Conduct B14, which covers research including social, medical and government surveys and polling. Users were interviewed with no notice and in some cases without the knowledge of their families and carers. Many have been left upset and confused by the interview. Point 3, the unviable alternatives offered. The alternatives explored and the tender process undertaken by the officers merely paid lip service to the Resources Committee members' requirements and was designed to steer them towards the direction the Chief Exec wanted, i.e. close the building to save money. Point 4, the neglected building. Funding from the Council's capital budget could be used to refurbish and reconfigure the layout. You have £400,000 profiled in the capital programme for 2014-15 for a day centre for older people. This was an option in your 2012 feasibility study, which we delivered to you all over the weekend. Remember, your officers spent £400,000 on communications, IT and equipment in the last 3 months. You have paid Northamptonshire County Council £407,000 for fees, services and disengagement costs in April this year alone. You have the money in this year's budget and 10,000 voters want you to spend it on Glamis Hall. Our proposal: the committee will set up a community organisation to take over the management of the building. If members agree to transfer ownership of the building and its land to the new organisation, part fund the refurbishment or rebuild of the facility, agree sensible funding on a 3-year downward sliding scale to help us run the service in the short term and give us a modest grant in the longer term. Work with us to make your own motto real and go forward together. Working together, we can turn Glamis Hall back into a thriving centre for the wider community to take pride in. Resolve to do this tonight and let the electorate know that you are listening to Wellingborough. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Can I just say, as a comment, this council, believe it is complying with all legislation and will continue to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Graham Campbell.
Good evening. My father has been at Glamis Hall for 20 years after suffering a massive stroke at age 59. I was asked if he would go elsewhere if Glamis closed, and it saddens me to say that if he can no longer attend Glamis, that I don't think he will be here this time next year. He's lived in residential accommodation for over a year, and when he's not at the day centre, his day has no structure. Sleeping for most of it, as there's nothing to look forward to. What a life. Nothing against the accommodation, but it's just not Glamis Hall. He looks forward to going Glamis. They understand him, and he understands them. He doesn't talk much, as the stroke doesn't enable him to say what he wants to say. But the carers at Glamis won't let this stand in his way, and have fun with him. He has his meals there. I can tell just by looking at him whether he's attended Glamis or not. On the days he hasn't, he looks so weak. He has a bath there, as being paralysed down one side, he cannot manage this himself. He is a proud man, but feels comfortable with the staff bathing him. It was at his bath time that one of the carers rang me about his big toe not looking right and to get it checked out. Don't sound much, big toe, but to cut a long story short, he was checked out and discovered no pulse in his foot, a potentially serious issue. This is a bath time that my father and many others can only get at Glamis Hall. This is such an invaluable service. There is no way a 15-minute call in the morning and the evening will be able to replace this, or the relationships and trust that has been built up over the years. On another occasion, Glamis carers dropped my dad at home, and when they left him, they weren't quite happy with how he looked. So they went back in their own time to check. Thank God they did. He was seriously ill. They rang me and a paramedic, and by the time I arrived, he was unconscious on the kitchen floor, with a paramedic attending. The carer stayed the whole time and said no matter what the time was, I was to ring them with a feedback on my father's condition. If this carer hadn't taken the time to return, I dread to think the outcome. Now, if Glamis closes, the extra burden and expense on the GPs, the NHS and other community service will be immense. There is no way they are going to cope, as these services are already overstretched. Lives will be lost. My father's not had a day off sick in his life. He was an extremely hard-working man, paying his taxes so that he would be looked after in his latter years. Unfortunately, 59 was so young. He's not been able to enjoy his retirement. You cannot shut the one and only enjoyment he has, as do many others. Glamis must stay open, and these people shouldn't be put in this ridiculous situation worrying about what is rightfully theirs. One of Peter Bone's well-used sayings is listening to Wellingborough. Well, Wellingborough, the people you represent are asking you to listen now. They are there, each and every one of them, on that petition. Over 10,000. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks ever so much.
The next speaker is Paul Lord. Could I just remind you, try not to repeat what's been said before. Thank you.
The purpose of this speech is to show how the demographics for the borough show the need for Glamis and what value of money Glamis is against other care scenarios. Demographics. According to the 2011 census, there are 17,419 people in this borough over the age of 65. This equates to 23% of the population. The council website predicts that the population for Wellingborough town alone will increase by 30%, which could mean an extra 5,225 persons over the age of 65. According to the information for the communities and local government, certain areas of Wellingborough, including the estates within Queensway, are in the top 10 deprived areas within England. 3,849 of the borough's residents consider themselves to have poor health, and although the elderly are part of this figure, there will be others under the age of 65 who will need additional support in the near future. There are 5,089 unpaid carers in this borough, including myself, who do under 20 hours worth of care in a week, as they have other commitments such as work. Centres such as Glamis help relieve the pressure off the caring these carers provide, reducing the stress and enabling them to contribute to society. In a recent risk assessment by the council on Glamis, it was stated that 10 clients a week are referred to Glamis, which shows an overwhelming need for this service. Financial comparisons. The average cost of running Glamis Hall over the past 3 years is approximately £237,000 per year, with this money giving much needed care and social interaction for the elderly over a period of 5 to 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. Home care is a possible solution. However, the average cost for home care is £13.23 per hour for the East Midlands. Therefore, 160 users of the daycare centre receiving half an hour's home care during a working week to ensure they are fed and have social interaction would cost £275,000 per annum. Another solution is independent residential care, which in the East Midlands costs an average of £550 a week. When calculated into 5 days which Glamis is open, this would equate to £20,428 per resident. This figure also does not include things like accompanied trips to the shops, which the care homes charge extra for. To summarise, the demographics show that there's a growing need for centres such as Glamis, not only for the elderly but for those supporting them, whilst the finances show that the communal care package such as Glamis is much better value for money, thus saving the taxpayer and the pensioners who have worked all their life money. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lord. The next speaker is Diana Mercy Clayton.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Sir. I represent one of the younger, although not the youngest, users of Glamis Hall Day Centre. Looking around the room, I ask myself, how many of you can predict when you, yourself, or your family health is going to deteriorate to the extent that you need support? How many of you will end up on your own staring out of lonely windows? The answer is more than you think. I came to Wellingborough 11 years ago at the age of 52. I came here to semi-retire after a long and highly successful career in marketing research in London. I had no friends or family here, but a full and active life as a consultant within my profession. No one had warned me that by the age of 56, my hips and back would start playing up. Before 60 years, I had lost my business, I'd lost my source of income. By now, I was on a mobility scooter. I still had no real friends here and took extremely badly to retirement, such that it affected my health in other ways. Glamis Hall was my lifesaver in this respect. From making new friends, exercising more and eating better, I dread to think of life without Glamis Hall. From a bees in the bonnet point of view, I have always felt that the concentration on house building here in Wellingborough has been to the detriment of society. Towns like this may need to grow their population and workforce. However, it should not be to the detriment of individual people and their needs. I include in this all groups, from child play groups, youth clubs, sports and smaller religious groups, for parties, weddings, christenings and so forth, such as a real community centre like Glamis Hall. Let's start thinking of societal needs, beginning with the need to provide real facilities for groups such as ourselves, the elderly at Glamis Hall. To this end, we need the provision of more spaces rather than less. As the population is increasing, as you will hear again and again, so the demand is growing, not declining. We have heard on the streets of people in dire need of support of these services. Some who have been turned down by Glamis because, on the basis of its closure, well before we even knew that it was going to close. Please treat us with the respect we deserve.
Thank you, Diana.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Betty Ashton.
I'm sorry to have caused all this chaos. Please forgive me.
Not at all. Paula, could you...
My name is Betty Ashton.
Wait a moment, please.
Oh, sorry.
Could you bend the microphone down a little bit towards...
That's, yeah. Right.
Thank you.
My name is Betty Ashton. I am 90 years of age and live alone. I'm now disabled and have only partial sight, but I do have carers to help me in the mornings and evenings. I attend Glamis Hall Day Centre 2 days a week, having been referred there by my occupational therapist. For me and many other people, the day centre is a real lifeline. It gives you the opportunity to meet and converse with other people of the same generation. The carers and members of staff are second to none. They are unstinting in their efforts to make sure you enjoy the time spent at the day centre. They organise a variety of activities, both physical and mental, which, as well as being enjoyable, are also stimulating for both mind and body. Stimulation is very beneficial for the elderly. We also have an excellent 3-course lunch. This could be the only proper meal some clients have. Glamis Hall is the happiest and most caring place to be. In addition to the activities, there is also the opportunity to buy clothes, shoes, books, etc. from the traders who bring their goods to the day centre. There are also the services of a hairdresser, a podiatrist, as well as the opportunity to have a bath. For the people who are possibly too frail or elderly to be able to bath or shower at home, this is a real necessity. All of these services are very important and greatly appreciated. If you close Glamis Hall, most of the clients, including myself, will become prisoners in our own homes, facing a life sentence of loneliness and isolation, both soul-destroying emotions. We may be elderly, disabled, and blind, but we are still human beings and we still have feelings. Shame on you for attacking the most vulnerable people in the community. You have caused a great deal of anguish and distress to all who attend Glamis Hall, as well as their families, and also, of course, members of staff and carers. While collecting signatures for the petition in various parts of the town, 2 words were constantly being said by people signing. They were disgraceful and disgusting, and I wholeheartedly agree with them.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Vivian Ampadu.
We are a growing church that meets in Glamis Hall. We meet in Glamis Hall on Sundays, and we meet regularly in the hall on Saturdays or other days. We use it for various activities, and for some of us, we don't have any other social life except for the church. So if this hall closes down, we won't have access to this sort of life. Quite apart from that, I've personally, and other people have personally, tried to look for other halls which we've not been able to either access or have it to hire, and we haven't got the resources to be able to rent or not rent, but to buy a place of our own. So really, we need Glamis Hall to be open for us to be able to have a place. It's our home. It's really our home. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Gillian Powell.
Good evening. My name is Gillian Powell. I am the day centre manager for the day centres that we run within Age UK Northamptonshire, and I've been asked to speak about the benefits of day services for older people. Day centres work on a basis that there are older people who, for various reasons, find themselves unable to get out without support, but still have a desire to enjoy time out of their home, share a cooked lunch, and join in the activities of a centre whilst providing the opportunity to spend quality time with others. They can make an important contribution in preventing some of the problems caused by a lack of social contact and stimulation. They allow older people to continue to lead an independent life by enabling their freedom of choice, control, independence, and maintaining their dignity through engaging in a variety of activities and events provided. Older people who attend have many opportunities to contribute to the life of a day centre through activities and events which can have a positive impact on significant improvements in their own self-esteem and their quality of life. Day centres can play a vital role in combating social isolation and loneliness, as has already been mentioned, both for people alone but also for people living with others. Social contact may reduce the harmful effects of psychological stress, which can go on to affect their physical well-being and the well-being of others around them. Even if their physical quality of life is already poor, older people can experience good emotional well-being by attending a day centre. Roughly 31,000 older people live alone in the county, and 22,000 of these have at least one long-term condition. The older population, in particular those over 85, is set to double by 2030, and as a consequence, a potential doubling of a range of disorders, including dementia and other long-term limiting illnesses. There's no shortage of research about social isolation, loneliness, and the effects of social exclusion, which has emerged as a major issue because of the adverse impact it can have on health and well-being. Day centres are often seen as a focal point of someone's week, something to look forward to which gives them structure and purpose, but it can also be part of a rehabilitation and enabling programme for support for people with mental health problems, as part of a management plan for people who may be at risk of self-neglect or abuse. It may support their personal care needs. It could identify changes in their physical, psychological, social and financial needs, and also look to find resolutions. Again, has already been mentioned with the issue around the toe and it actually being a health condition. Finally, they can provide carers with some respite and therefore impact on their physical and psychological well-being as well. So the benefits of day centres can be far-reaching and as such should form an invaluable part of an option that is available to older people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Paula, could you just bend that microphone down a little bit, please? Our next speaker is Anthony Page.
Sorry. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Councillors. The entire Council, except for a very few, should be ashamed of the way they've handled this case. Inexcusable. This has been on your agenda for nearly 2 years now. You have given 180 defenceless people and staff and other users of the hall less than 6 months to find an alternative meeting place. You did not consult any of the users and ask what their future plans That is utterly unforgivable. On the 4th of August, we commemorated the First World War and how British soldiers, men and women, gave their lives for this country. Some of the users are people of that age who not only came through the First but also the Second World War. Their remaining precious lives rely on Glamis Hall for care, but most of all for friendship. Is this the way that we repay them back for their services they gave for their country? History easily forgotten. Council say there are no options available by using all the tactics possible to downgrade a 40-year-old building which could in fact be brought back up to date. I and many others call this total mismanagement, low priority on their jobs to-do list, so-called budgets, money spent elsewhere on less important things. They say they have no money left in the pot. That is open to question. What research and communication was carried out before deciding to close down Glamis Hall? You have shown no initiative or adequate forward planning. Had there not been this challenge, Glamis Hall will have closed down by December this year, the coldest, darkest time of the year. Glamis Hall is 4 decades old, holds many happy times. It may look a little bit tired, but who isn't at that age? It can be resurrected, if not by the council, then by our own community. Contrary to what is said about the use of the building, it is well attended and could be better organised if given a chance. I'm personally tired of hearing the excuse words heard nearly every day these days. We have learnt by our mistakes. Usually said after a complete disaster and when it's too late. I'm sorry is also a powerful word, but with no feeling or meaning. Dear Council, this is not a war. Allow us to work together to bring community spirit back to Wellingborough. And ask yourselves, have I helped my community? What have I done? Have I done my best? Am I a fair player? Fast forward to 2015 now. News headlines. Wellingborough Council are our heroes. Together with the community have rebuilt Glamis Hall. Prince William and Catherine, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, are invited to cut the ribbon for the grand reopening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Dr. Christopher Ellis.
Good evening all. My name is Dr. Christopher Ellis. I've been a GP at Queensway Medical Centre for 14 years, having qualified many moons before that. I've spoken to a variety of GPs within the town, all the practice managers. My speech is based upon their comments, and I'll try my best not to reiterate any comments made to this point. Glamis Hall is an integral part of the local community. Without it, what happens? What if the patient who's had no foot pulses, nothing happens to them? Their foot drops off, they have an operation, they become wheelchair dependent. Unfortunately, they have a substantial higher risk of dying. I'm sorry it's blunt, but it's the truth. What if we change all the care plans so that each patient has an individual care plan based on an individual assessment? That sounds very good in practice. However, how many times can you have an individual care plan when you're on your own, but you actually need social contact? How often can you have an individual care plan when you need somebody to get you in and out of the bath? How often can you have an individual care plan when social needs like buying of clothes and the like is necessary? As a GP, we have had multiple consultations to this point about this issue, predominantly from carers who are worried about the impact on their life. If a carer has 2 to 4 hours of respite, they can continue to care. If they can't, they will eventually get ground down and become unwell themselves. Their loved ones, there's a substantial increased risk of admission to one of the local hospitals. That is a disaster. I'm sorry, but it is. Their care is good, but they don't do very well. Okay? If they come out of hospital, they may need long-term residential care. I'm sorry, there's not that many being built in Wellingborough at the moment. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. The next speaker is Richard Garvey.
Mr Mayor, let me start by thanking the campaigners for their efforts in standing up for the service users and the excellent staff at Glamis Hall. You're all heroes. Before I go any further, can I place on record my deep concern at the consultations that have taken place with the users of Glamis Hall? Elected members, how would you feel if your elderly, frail or vulnerable relative was taken into a side room for a one-on-one meeting to complete a consultation survey without representation, without your knowledge? Most of the people who use Glamis Hall are incapable of looking after themselves, yet officers from this council thought it was appropriate to conduct some of these surveys without contacting various relatives or carers, and using a survey with pointed questions that has been condemned by the Market Research Society. This, in my view, is unforgivable. The name and reputation of this council has been dragged through the gutter during this whole process. The council have gone on record to say that no consultation took place, as they believe incorrectly that they do not need to do so, as this is a non-statutory service. I'd suggest that the legal team start Googling judicial review. It would appear that consultation is something of a weakness for this authority. The closure of Glamis Hall, the future of the town centre and high street development, the decision to remove stores and other changes to the market despite the last meeting of the Services Committee being cancelled due to a supposed lack of business to discuss. The massively overspent crematorium project, which according to a councillor is massively over budget and officers are demanding more money to spend.
Mr Garvey, may I ask you to stay on the subject matter?
Okay.
We're discussing only Glamis Hall tonight. Thank you.
I think my point is that all of these decisions are supposed to be subject to the democratic process, but it would appear that under the current administration, democracy is dead. At the last full council meeting, Councillor Blackwell made a valid point. What is the point of having a committee system if there is no passion, reason, discussion or debate? As things stand, I'm told that the officers typically only give one recommendation, and it's put through on a nod and a wink. Words of the council. Just who is running the council? Where is the manifesto or the agenda? There is none. And it is this policy on the hoof approach that is killing our town.
Mr Garvey,
Councillors, you need to restore public faith in this authority, and you can start that process this evening by overturning the decision to close Glamis Hall.
Please listen to me for one moment. I asked you to stay on the subject matter.
Which I am.
Each sentence you're veering away from it. Please stay with it. If you veer away from it once more, I'll ask you to stand down. Okay?
Councillors, you need to restore public faith in this authority, and you can start that process this evening by overturning the decision to close Glamis Hall and launching an open and transparent consultation process to work together to find a way for these services to continue. This issue is not and never has been political. It's about doing what is right. Please consider the implications and consequences on the service users and the staff that your actions may have this evening. Save Glamis Hall.
And now we have Audrey Russell and Linda Knight.
Good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of the Phoenix Badminton Club of Wellingborough, which is a group of local ladies who have been playing badminton on Friday evenings at Glamis Hall for over 27 years. If we lose this facility, it would be very difficult to find another suitable local hall. So we are also asking that Glamis Hall be kept open, as this is a good way to meet up with friends each week and to keep fit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That does end the public speaking session. I'm now going to ask the Leader of the Council to introduce the subject matter.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll try not to get involved in politics on this. But the object before the Council tonight, and you're seeing the agenda, Mr Mayor, is there is no recommendation. There are three choices this Council to make. 4.1 to confirm the decision to close Glamis Hall from the 1st of January 2015, or refer the decision at 4.2 to close Glamis Hall back to the Resources Committee on the 16th of September, or rescind the decision to close Glamis Hall and invite Resources Committee to consider the future of the building. Mr Mayor, the Council's seen the petition and we've heard the comments of the local people tonight, and very many good points, I've made notes, have been raised, Mr Mayor. And you have the report from the Head of Resources before you tonight. A difficult decision was made in June about Glamis Hall after full and careful consideration by this Council. Since making the decision to close the building, two things have happened. First, there has been a great deal of interest in the future of the building and the day centre, which we've never had the last time it was publicly debated in 2011. And second, new options and information have been put forward to us were not available before the decision was made. You've had that from the first speaker tonight, Mr Mayor. Tonight the Council shows that it does listen to local people. However, there are also many factors to be considered. Referring back the issue to the Resources Committee will allow us to consider everything in the round. Two key issues are the condition of the building has not changed in the few weeks since the decision to close it was taken, and the Council's medium-term financial outlook has not changed. Every decision in local government is increasingly difficult given the wider financial outlook, which shows no sign of improving anytime soon. Frankly, Mr Mayor, there are no easy answers here. So taking all into account what we've heard tonight and what we're being told to come, I would arise and ask my fellow members that the Council should refer the decision taken on the 25th of June to close Glamis Hall back to the Resources Committee so that it can consider all the new information and options available. At the meeting on the 16th of September, I will ask officers to provide members of every scrap of available information on the day centre, and the committee can then recommend a way forward to the full Council in October. I'll leave it at that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Do we have a seconder for the motion?
I wish to second that, Mr Mayor, but I would like to ask to reserve the right to speak later. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Graves. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Morell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't disagree with a lot that's been said this evening. We do know how important the daycare centre at Glamis Hall is. For those who don't know me, I did work for this authority for many years, and Queen's Hall and Glamis Hall were part of my department. So I have a great care for those centres. But I think it's important to understand how they came about in the first place. Back in the late 70s, we had a redundant building that we wanted to find a use for, so somebody came up with the suggestion it could be a drop-in centre for senior citizens. Somewhere they could just have a lunch, cup of coffee, meet up, and basically come and go as they wished. And it was decided that was a good use for the building, and the County Council, whose service it should be, it's their statutory service, it's not ours, gave quite considerable grants in those early days. That continued for a number of years, and Queen's Hall Day Centre became more and more popular to the degree that we needed to find another venue. Glamis Hall has always been an underused building. We tried very hard to give it to the community. We sent out 2,200 letters to the community asking if they'd like to take over the management of it. We had 7 replies. So we took it from that no, they didn't. So it was decided that we would turn a building that wasn't suitable into a day centre because there was a need. Sometime later, and one of the things that has changed, of course, over this period of time is the people who came to us were generally fairly able to do things. Yes, we did provide transport. Yes, we did provide bathing. We did provide hairdressing services because they were the sort of things that senior citizens needed and wanted. But there were many other services around at that time that when our clients got to the stage where just dropping in for a meal and a cup of coffee was not actually what they needed other services, they generally would go off and use those other services. Now, we've all seen those other services disappear. And unfortunately, the situation now at Glamis Hall is we have a building that is running out of its time. And the building itself is one that really, I'm very pleased to hear that you can all turn it back into a good useful building. I think you'd find it would cost quite a large amount more money than even we think it's going to cost to do that. We have staff who work exceedingly hard and have always worked hard and have taken on cases which are much beyond what they should be dealing with in more and more. But being the staff they are, they've always taken that on board. It's not really right of us to insist that they should do that. I heard the case of the one who went home and made sure that somebody was safe. That's nothing unusual. It's happened over the years. But rightly, that person, although that's very good of them to do it, shouldn't have been doing it because they put themselves in all sorts of risk. It's the world we live in, I'm afraid. We, for 2 years, and it's interesting to say that we've been 2 years doing nothing, for 2 years we've endeavoured to try and find an alternative venue for a day centre. We've looked at alternative suppliers for a day centre, including Age UK, who didn't want to know. They did not want to even quote. So it was interesting to hear them tell us what a day centre is, and I do appreciate that, but we do know what a day centre is. We've got to the stage now where the building is sooner or later going to create a major problem. There are things in that building that could cause problems. The building itself is not suitable. The toilets are at a stage where if something's not done about them sooner or later, we're really going to have serious problems. We don't wish to really close the day centre. We still wish to try and find another venue for it. We have a building that won't last much longer, and that really is the decision we're having to make. And I assure you, I find it a very hard decision to make because my heart and soul is still with those day centres. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Henley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise as a local councillor, but of course it's not just a Queensway ward issue. We have the honour of the building, but the service is used widely throughout the borough, and in fact there's as many people from Urchester ward who use it as Queensway ward. So just in case anyone was wondering. When I put the... it's unusual when you come to before a meeting and you see a proposed action which doesn't have any proposed action. We have 3 options, and it's quite unusual. And I described, I put it on Twitter, and I described it as an emergency council meeting. The deputy leader quite correctly corrected me, saying it's an extraordinary council meeting. However, if you talk to the users or the carers, I think I would be correct. It is an emergency council meeting. I'm also standing here tonight because it's clear from the things that we've seen, both in the last couple of days and also since the decision was taken, I don't think that the decision we took that night, we had all the information. It was not taken easily. It was taken in private, so therefore people have to trust me when I say that both sides did not find it easy to close it. But it was not taken easily. However, it was taken. And if I knew now what I knew then... Hang on. Close. I think you're all with me on that one. I would probably be pushing harder. So therefore, I'm standing tonight not in support of 4.2. I'm standing tonight in support of a revised 4.3 to give us time. We've got the 16th of September is 2 weeks' time, and I don't think that's enough time to make a decision that could potentially impact the borough for the next 20, 30 years. We have a situation whereby I think we need to give our officers as much time as they need. There are other agencies involved. For example, when Councillor Bell stood at the Glamis meeting, he said we hadn't been even talked to the County Council. Let's not kid ourselves. We are not doing this on our own, nor should we be doing this on our own, and we do need all agencies involved. And if I'm going to be brutally honest, I don't think the public care if it's a borough issue or a county issue, they want it fixed. Now, sorry, I wasn't planning to pause for applause. I'm not used to it either.
I think that is allowable, Councillor Henley.
Thank you. In terms of the scale, I've never seen anything like that. I admit 10 years ago we closed Queen's Hall. We had outcry, people were not happy, but we took the decision at the time, and 10 years later no one has ever looked to reopen Queen's Hall, which suggests that, let's be honest, the building wasn't appropriate at the time. And also the service was probably fitter for one building rather than two. We didn't make it, it wasn't easily made then, but we certainly didn't have the scale of the protest that we had now. Over 10,000 people have taken the time to write a petition. At least 1% of that people are here, and I can obviously occasionally hear applause from a different room. We've never had to have well, I guess I deserve that one. Yeah. Hello in the cheap suits. I don't know if that works. So I'm proposing that in order to do this properly, that we amend 4.3 accordingly, rescind the decision to close Glamis Hall, and invite Resources Committee to further consider the future of all services and buildings involved. I have very carefully used the words services and buildings. It's clear that the church use it, Badminton use it, other people use it. It's not just a daycare centre, but it's not just a building. I would also formally request that we record votes on this tonight, given the importance of the matter to the public. But I think they have the right to know how their borough councillors voted. Does the clerk need me to repeat 4.3, or she's got it? Okay. I formally move 4.3 as amended.
Thank you. You need a second, that, Councillor Henley. Happy to take a recorded vote also.
Mr. Mayor, if I can second the 4.3 as amended by Councillor Henley. I am keen to support the amendment because, as has been said, we need more than 2 weeks to do the work required, and that work needs to be in partnership with the Glamis Hall Committee. I'd like to give them my particular thanks for the quality of the document they delivered to me, which included a great deal of information, particularly the feasibility study that I had not seen before. That partnership can obviously proceed in a number of ways, and I'm glad to see that the Glamis Hall Committee is looking at incorporation, which would obviously be an option. Well, what we need is appropriate proposals, both for the short term and for the longer term, for the building and for the whole range of services. There are urgent things which we need to do, and one of them is checking that all the people with significant needs are assessed by the County Council. So that they can have allocated budgets which they can use, that personal budget they could then use to pay for the additional care needs that we understand a number of them have. And this is if they meet the statutory eligibility criteria. Picking up Councillor Morell's point and the number of things in the papers we've received from the Council, we keep saying this is a service we can do if we like. Well, in many ways the County Council, in general welfare of the elderly, is in a similar position, but they have a statutory duty to meet needs that are assessed under community care legislation, and we should be assuring that that happens. This then will enable the Council to continue to support the provision of a service for vulnerable adults. The quote I was really struck by in the paper was, the place, get together and socialise and have a meal with friends. That is what people need. That is about loneliness. That is about the real need. In addition, there are those bits, podiatry I heard mentioned. Many people are housebound because if your nails aren't sorted, you can't get out of the house and you can't get at-home podiatry, as well as support for bathing. But there is a core bit which we, as a borough council, have the power to do, and I would say we actually have a duty to our electorate to do that. There are a range of options for the future management of this service in the third sector, around social enterprise and voluntary bodies. And I think, obviously I understand that there's been some interest from some organisations which can be followed up in this discussion. There's obviously now, of course, social enterprise companies, there's various legislation around. The government's very keen to promote this, and you can certainly see that. We were told in Heather's initial talk some very sensible suggestions they've made about which involves limited financial contributions over a tapering period, which sounds what I would describe as sensible and practical. We're not talking about here saying write a blank cheque. The second part is the options for the full or part refurbishment of the premises. The feasibility study is important. Now, unless there are additional papers, which none of us have seen, it indicates the building is not in a good state, but it's not in a bad. And I suppose somebody being in the sector for a long time is used to buildings in that kind of situation. I think there are a lot of ways forward, that this could be around the refurbishment of that building. I think there are real opportunities for partnerships with the Housing Association, and I think the comments about the transfer of assets, which is now under legislation, is easier to do. I know there's issues around TUPE, but they can be overcome if there is the will. I'm sorry, I've slightly lost my place. The key, as you might guess, is around health and well-being. You wouldn't expect me to say that, would you? But this is about the welfare and health of our borough residents. We have a duty to promote the welfare of vulnerable people and their carers. And that's what this service is about, and that's what we should be doing. We have a duty to promote fitness. I always have to get my jag in about obesity, not looking at anybody present. But that actually is the biggest factor. I was very glad to hear the health information given, but you will see that in Wellingborough we top the poll on that one across the county. And what we all need is a lot more people playing badminton and, of course, football. And I think, as the lady from the badminton was talking about, it's the social bit, you know, as you meet your friends as well as playing, so that's an important part. So that's the second bit. The third bit is community cohesion. And the church, which is an important part of our community, they use it, they see it as their home. And so there is this whole range of people from a sector of our community who use it, and they need somewhere to be able to conduct their services and their social life. And community cohesion is very important. And finally, there's the bit about social events. I think I noticed in the paperwork there was actually no information about bookings, what income we made of it, missing out us having no income, no knowledge about how much it costs us to maintain the building. So perhaps that's information we'll have in the future. But finally, what I would want to say is that we can afford it, because there are ways of doing this within realistic budgets, as the Save Glamis Hall Committee has already suggested. The kind of capital sums to keep going short term could be found within slippage, missing out anything else. The issue is, do we have the political will to do it? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Maguire.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I'm going to make 3 quick points. This is the most important daycare thing in our borough. And when I say the borough, Councillor Henry mentioned it earlier, I have 18 residents what are registered there from the village of Rochester. I have one gentleman goes there 2 days a week, and it's a godsend to him and his family. Because on them 2 days, he gets looked after by the staff, 100%. And I know some of the staff who work there. And if he wasn't to go there, then the family would have to have them 2 more days where they have to look after him. You know, so he goes there, he gets picked up, he goes back, and he goes back to where he lives in Barringers. The second thing, I don't know why we're here. Why do we want to shut something? It's a small amount of money in our budget. We're talking about £170,000. Right? I've been on this council 7 years, over 7 years, and I'm seeing money wasted. Right? And I'm not going to mention yourself, Mr. Mayor, because I don't think that'd be right. But money on street signs, furniture, and we're shutting a daycare centre. I don't think we should do this. And I'm going to be definitely voting not to shut this. And the third thing as well is the sports. I've been going to that Queensway for 30 odd years, watching my Sunday teams play Queensway, Calendar, Olympic, Windsor's, and everyone who plays up there, Saturdays and Sundays. It's not just about daycare centre, but that's the most important thing, is the daycare centre now. But it's in the most deprived area, as we already know, and the sport is a leveller. Councillor Elliott mentioned obesity. I never played football, I couldn't play it, but I always go and watch it. I will go every Saturday and Sunday to watch a game of football. And I've been about Queensway watching it. It's not that bad facilities. You want to go to the racecourse at Northampton, there's not a bad place. All it needs is a bit of TLC, and let's spend the £170,000 and get it done. Thank you.
Councillor Harrington.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not necessarily supporting 4.3, but I would certainly go to 4.2. I think we should refer the matter back to Council, purely because there's new information that we didn't have when we made our decision back in June.
Could I just stop you, Councillor Harrington? We are discussing the amendment being proposed by Councillor Henley. Quite happy to hear you later.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Patel.
I'm not speaking on amendment. I will speak later then.
Okay. Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the people that are here tonight, and congratulate all the people that have been involved in this campaign over the last few weeks. It's a credit to the people, not just of Wellingborough, but the borough of Wellingborough, in the villages, etc., etc. So I can be reassured, because I have said many things over the last year or so, lack of debate in this council chamber, that lack of differences between the two political parties, and that is all reassuring to me, very reassuring. And if we look at what's been proposed tonight, Councillor Bell, the leader of the council, moved resolution, what is it, 1, 2, yes, refer the decision to close Glamis Hall back to the Resources Committee on the 16th of September. The one moved by the Labour group, which I support, 4.3, says rescind the decision to close Glamis Hall, when that's a fundamental major change in what we're discussing tonight. We on this side of the council are saying we rescind that decision, we change it, and we're not going to close it in this decision tonight. So that's very, very important. I go, Mr. Mayor, to Glamis Hall at least twice a year over many, many years. I have to be careful how I put this, because I'm at the age now where I could probably go as a client, although I'm not going major disability. So yes, some people here know my age, so I've got to really... I did consider this, and I thought, no, I go as a councillor, and there's people on the other side who go as a councillor, similar age to me. I'm not going to say no names, but we go, and I see firsthand the excellent work they do for elderly, vulnerable and poor people of this borough. And the staff, in my opinion, is absolutely magnificent, led very professionally by Linda. And we heard a lot about what we can afford and what we can't afford, and the point's been made by my colleagues about we can afford it. But you would think at times that we was a poor country, wouldn't you? What goes on? And I'm not going to get involved in big political debates. You know me different to that. But you'd think we was a poor country, a third world country. We're one of the richest countries in the world. Now, until quite recently, I used to say we were the fourth richest country. I understand now, officially, we're the sixth richest country in the world. And if we can't look after our elderly, our vulnerable and our poor people, then something is wrong in the society that we live. What I'm going to say now is many church leaders, the Archbishop of Canterbury, the leader of the Roman Catholic Church, the Archbishop of York, says, and I say it tonight, society is judged on how it looks after its vulnerable and elderly and poor people. And we're not setting a very good example, I don't believe, here tonight. Yes, the Borough Council has financial challenges, I'd put it like that, but it's all about priorities, and in my book, looking after the elderly, the poor and the vulnerable is a top priority. And what does it do? I'll tell you what Glamis Hall does to elderly, poor, vulnerable people. It gets them out of their home, goes to Glamis Hall, and they meet other people, and it's friendship and all the other services. It's a magnificent service that we get, and we should keep it going, look at all the options, and make sure it continues for the people of the future. And fellow councillors, some of you are not far off when you'll be needing it. So think about this, seriously. So I have no hesitation in putting my vote, and it can be recorded. I'm George Blackwell, a Labour councillor from Earl Spartan. Will be voting to rescind the decision to close Glamis Hall. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Blackwell. As colourful as ever. Does anybody else wish to speak? Yes, Councillor Scarborough.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quite a lot has already been said, I think, with which I agree entirely. If you had asked me 2 months ago whether this issue would generate the level of concern among the people of this borough that it has generated, I don't think I would have expected anything like the amount of concern that has come through. And I do think that the Save Glamis Hall for All committee have done a tremendous job in mobilising and bringing into this council chamber the strength of feeling in this town and borough about this issue. I've not seen anything like, I've been on this council on and off for 25 years, I've not seen anything like it over the whole of that period, by some way. 10,000 signatures, I don't think we've had that before. But that's not really what I'm getting up to speak about, because I've listened patiently and without interrupting to all the speakers, including some with whom I've disagreed. I'd like the same courtesy, if I may. Thank you. Because what has really interested me about this has been the good sense and moderation of the Save Glamis Hall for All committee throughout this process. I've been away for a week on holiday. I got back today. I have to say I came back a bit early to make sure I was here, and there in my post was this. I understand it came through my door last Friday. I'm sorry I wasn't here, so I've only had this afternoon to read it. And I have to say, I think it's tremendous, this document. I think the committee has come up with a well-thought-through plan that looks to me like a real way ahead, potential way ahead, for Glamis and the services offered there. I was delighted to see this, particularly delighted to see, I think it's about page 4, the 8-point plan. I went down starting ticking the ones I agreed with. then I realised I agreed with them all. So I stopped ticking them. It's interesting because it gives us a way ahead that, if it works, gives the services and the centre a future, taps into funds from other sources, and gradually reduces the need for council taxpayers' money at a time when we're struggling financially. And it gives hope for the future. Now, we've already managed to go through a similar process to save some money on our deal with the Castle Wellingborough Limited in recent years. We're doing some very important work at the moment about reducing the costs of the leisure offer. I mention these because they are also discretionary services which the council offers. Now we have a serious proposal by serious and sensible people to do something similar with Glamis Hall. Now, that strikes me as exactly what a listening council should be wanting to get. You know, on this issue, the people haven't just spoken, they've stood on the housetops and they've shouted at us. But they've not just done that, they've given us a set of coherent, cohesive proposals. Now, given that we have those proposals, given that we also have our officers busy producing a good deal of more information, as Councillor Bell very rightly said, the issue that arises back to my mind is, what do you do then? Well, the first thing I would say is that I'm jolly glad nobody is continuing to talk about supporting option 1, 4.1. And 4.2 is a bit better than 4.1. But here we are on the 2nd. The 16th is 14 days away. I thought about this very hard ever since I got these papers, and particularly ever since I got back today and saw this proposal. And I've come to the conclusion, the firm conclusion, that 14 days is not long enough to give this proper consideration. The only way in which we can do that, in my view, is we have to start afresh. We have to set the clock back to 0 and start working properly with the local people who now want to work with us. We've heard about prior times when there were no volunteers to come out and work around Glamis Hall, and I know how hard the community development workers in Queensway are working to encourage people to get engaged with their community, and I know how hard that can be. Well, for once in our lives as a council, we've actually got a large number of people who want to work with us. Not only that, they have some great ideas they want to share with us. I think we owe it to those people, we owe it to the campaign, we owe it to the 10,000 people who put their names on the petition to create that time and space. And for that reason, after much thought, I'm going to go along with option 4.3 as amended by Councillor Henley.
Thank you, Councillor Scarborough. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Hawkes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Forgive my voice, it's a bit croaky at the moment. But I'd like to say, first of all, congratulations to all the people that organised the petition and organised the committee, because it shows that it can be done, and it's great to see the community coming together. That is so important. I'm in a bit of a problem now, because I've heard the debates, and I can see it from both sides. I lean slightly more to the left, but since I'm now independent, I can do, can't I? I don't think any of these things do what we want, because there are certain requests in the petition which are very valid. They're very important, but they're being slightly brushed over here. I really believe that this council should listen to the voice of the people, listening to Wellingborough, we've all heard it before. We should take on board at least 2 of the points which are in the wording of the petition and have been well covered in the excellent document that was popped through my door last week. And that is that we've not, in any of the, as far as I can see or recall, in any of the motions or amendments, covered the fact of committing to keeping the hall and its services open until at least November 2015. I think this council, and the council laws, should vote exactly to do that, because that is the time scale that's going to be needed for the people to be I was going to say rehoused, it makes them sound like pussycats, but to be re-accommodated if such becomes the case. Secondly, there is nothing, as far as I can see in what's before us now, to demand that this council, we, us, work with the community as they have asked us to do, because that is precisely the way forwards. This is a joint enterprise. It should be the council and the people going forwards together, and I would like to see that embodied in a resolution. Now, I don't really think it makes a great deal of difference whether we put an amendment on to the end of 4.1 or 4.2 or 4.3, and I'm quite lost as to where we are in the procedures at the moment, because I know we're discussing Councillor Henley's amendment, but I don't think I can support it because I want it to go further. And if I get the opportunity, and if I can find anybody to second it, I will put forward an amendment which I have drafted here, and I will ask if anybody on one side or the other are prepared to second it. But that, I'm afraid, is why I can't support anything that's before us at the moment, because it doesn't go far enough and it doesn't give the people what they've asked for. Thank you, Mr. Mann.
Councillor Hawkes, point of clarity. Are you proposing an amendment to Councillor Henley's proposal?
I don't think you can do an amendment to an amendment.
No.
So I've got to wait, and if his amendment is successful, that becomes substantive, then I'll pop up and do another amendment.
Indeed, sir. Indeed,
Okay.
sir.
If it
I wasn't
fails-
quite sure when you were in your
If it fails,
conversation.
I'll still get up.
Okay.
So you'll hear from me in a minute.
Does anybody else wish to speak on Councillor Henley's proposal? No. Councillor Henley, you did ask for a recorded vote. You do realise you need 7 supporters. Do you have 7 supporters? 7 in total, of course. Yeah. Could you show, please? We need to record that. Thank you. So we're now going to vote on the amendment proposed by Councillor Henley, that 4.3, to rescind the decision to close Glamis Hall and invite Resources Committee to consider the future of the building.
Just to clarify,
Please, thank you.
Just to repeat myself, rescind the decision to close Glamis Hall and invite Resources Committee to further consider the future of all services and buildings involved.
Thank you for that clarification, Councillor Henley. Thank you. Okay, would all those in favour? Thank you. Okay. Councillor Ainge is not here. Councillor Allibone not here. Councillor Bailey, how do you vote? Against. Will come back to me in a moment. Councillor Byrne not here. Councillor Bell.
Against.
Councillor Blackwell.
For.
Councillor Carr.
Against.
Councillor Dallacchia. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Emerson. Councillor Goff is absent. Councillor Graves.
Against.
Councillor Griffiths.
Against.
Councillor Harrington.
Against.
Councillor Hawkes.
Abstain.
Councillor Henley.
For.
Councillor Higgins. Councillor Holliman.
Against.
Councillor Laura Lowman. Councillor Graham Lowman.
Against.
Councillor Maguire.
For.
Councillor Morell.
Against.
Councillor Partridge Under is not here. Councillor B. Patel. Abstain. Councillor M. Patel. Councillor Pursglove. Councillor Patricia Raymond. Councillor Scarborough.
For.
Councillor Simmons. Councillor Timms. Councillor Ward. Councillor Warwick. Abstain. Absent. Councillor Malcolm Waters. Councillor Veronica Waters. And Councillor Watts is absent. Thank you. The vote is 16 against and 9 for. The amendment is lost. So moving on to the substantive motion. Unless anybody else wants to raise any other proposals. Councillor Laurelon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I thank, first of all attendees this evening for bringing their concerns to the Borough Council. I appreciate and understand your concerns relating to your relatives. My own mother suffers from the onset of dementia, so I know it presents challenges to the carers. Unfortunately, I've received, like many others, a huge bunch of papers from the campaign group only over the weekend, and due to personal commitments and also working full-time, I have not been able to actually read the papers in any great detail, but I thank you for sending them to me anyway. First of all, I would like to clarify that I was unable to attend the last council meeting for business reasons. My speaking is not for political point scoring, but because I care passionately about Wellingborough and its residents. I also respect the responsibility that is placed upon the Borough Council to distribute and apply its resources fairly. May I start to say that the point of discussion and my speaking this evening is relating to the building only, not the services. The building has essentially been condemned as not fit for purpose. I'm not speaking on the discretionary services that are currently being provided. The discussion is on the current state of the building. The property known as Glamis Hall is a 1970s community facility that later on became a day facility, and sadly now at the end of its economic life. The property is currently used as a council-run day centre for elderly people, whilst the sports hall and associated facilities are available for community use during evenings and weekends. We have been advised, and we quite rightly, and when I say we, the borough councillors, quite rightly rely on the financial expert advice and other, that there's an annual shortfall of approximately £257,000, offsetting the fees paid for by the users. The provisional figure does not include another shortfall in a grant of approximately £44,000 from the County Council in the future. In early 2012, the Council commissioned a feasibility report of the Glamis Hall building. It gave us options for the building over the next 10 years. The conclusions to the report stated that even if significant investment was made in the region of around £358,000 in the meantime, covering extensive refurbishment of the building, the retained core of the building would essentially still remain a poor building. We are not discussing services extended from that facility. Rightly or wrongly, such care services have always been discretionary. I understand from earlier discussions it's not something we want to think about, that it's the County Council or the Borough Council, but to us it makes a big difference, because we either fund it directly or we source it via County Council money. The typical service was provided from a then 1970s modern building, and it was thought by whoever took that decision at the time that it was a good service, and I fully agree. The service extended by the care staff at Glamis Hall has been fantastic. But times, unfortunately and sadly, move on. We are painfully aware that the fabric of the building has reached its natural life, and we've looked over the past 2 years at how we can either find another organisation to take on Glamis Hall via tenders that resulted in no takers, and faced with large maintenance costs and financial pressures, how we could deal with a potential closure for the past 2 years, causing minimum impact to the different users, the elderly and vulnerable who attend the Glamis Hall for a variety of activities. As part of the budget discussions, irrespective which government would have been in power, this Borough Council finds itself nowadays with it's more challenging to provide for services, usually a responsibility of the County Council or others are the care services. And it's an extremely painful decision, together with this full support of our colleagues on the other side of the chamber at the last meeting, who attended the working party meetings during the last 2 years, and also the Resources Committee members jointly. A decision was taken to ask the Resources Committee to proceed with the request of closure of the building known as Glamis Hall due to the extremely high maintenance and repair costs, and to seek alternative arrangements for a day centre. And I repeat, to seek alternative arrangements. No larger scale investments since the 2012 feasibility report were carried out on the building, as it would have represented a poor, non-sustainable return. There are now health and safety concerns with the current state of the building, and especially in respect of the roof. I also note from my own attendances at Glamis Hall the poor state of, for instance, the female toilets, with wet floors, repairs in desperate need there, and everything else, and basically waiting for accidents to happen. At any age, we can't afford accidents to occur and consequential litigation cost. Minimal work was in the interim carried out.
One moment, Councillor Lorman. Please wait. Could I ask the audience, please, to be quiet and listen to the debate? As I mentioned at the beginning, please no mumbling. It's difficult for other colleagues to hear what's being said. Thank you. Continue, Councillor.
Minimal work was in the interim carried out to ensure electrical and fire safety systems were within safe limits. It is a fact that due to the change from the original community facility to a day centre and later accepting specific needs of the client group, has of course put extra demand on the Borough Council. Additional heating put further demands on an outdated heating and hot water system with unsuitable pipework, presenting ongoing challenges that require continuous monitoring. We require checks of water quality, for instance, in the supply that caused a temporary closure of the day centre previously. We also have to monitor asbestos that has been found in the building. The internal layout of the building is not really suitable for limited mobility users, with larger distances between the individual rooms, facilities, and so on. And it was also noted with great concern that there were incidences of trips and falls over the last couple of years. Nothing will change the outcome unless we find an additional provisional figure of £358,000 to fully repair the building at Glamis Hall. It will not change that the expert advice that was commissioned and our concerns are over the asbestos that is present in the building. Any removal and disturbance of such would automatically require the closure and is monitored closely by our staff. The building sadly is at the end of its economic life and not fit for purpose as a day centre due to the specialist needs of vulnerable clients in terms of infection control, hygiene, temperature fluctuations, slips and trips. I therefore will support the Leader of the Council with his proposal to accept 4.2 that will give this Council enough time, and I would like to put an amendment forward to 4.2 due to the concerns that were there that 2 weeks might not be enough. In just putting in 4.2 after the or, should not all information be available at the next following resources meeting? That's all I want to say.
Councillor Hawkes.
I'm a bit lost, Mr.
I'm
Mayor.
sorry, were you going to second?
No. I just want to know whether you can do an amendment to an amendment, that's all. I thought you were trying to amend an amendment.
Councillor Lorman has moved an amendment. It needs to be seconded.
But there was already one under consideration.
No, that was defeated,
been voted on.
wasn't it?
It's been voted on.
Oh, well, I'll move on. When you... when you're ready, let me know and I'll make an amendment.
We don't have support for that amendment. Councillor Hawkes, you may now speak.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did say I'd come back. I want to make just a couple of very, very brief, not really inconsequential points, but the first is that the very room we're in now and the offices down here are about the same age as Glamis Hall. And these are certainly past the sell-by date, but they're still doing the job. The second thing, I've got a piece of paper in my hand here, which was kindly sent to me by Sam Knowles. She's wonderful, because she told us that in 2012-13, investment property valuations were 35.92 million, and in 2013-14, they're 49.2 million. 49.2 million. So we're not exactly on our uppers yet, are we? And I'm sure that with that sort of investment property, we can do something, because we're not, after all, a private equity fund. We're not in the business to try and make money. What we're trying here to do is, I hope, serve the community, improve the community, and also enhance the reputation of the council. The reputation of the council is pretty important. So, getting to the nitty-gritty now, cut to the chase. I don't know where I am, but I'm going to suggest an amendment. Yes. Oh, yes. Jolly good. I'm awfully sorry, Councillor Harrington.
Gentlemen, please.
Right. Well, the amendment is, and it'll probably be to 4.2, but it could equally work with 4.3. Let's say it's 4.3. So it reads effectively, and it's intended, by the way, to meet the requests, the requirement, the pleas and the prayers of the people who signed that petition, the mere 10,000 odd that did it. OK, let's remember them, shall we? Because I think they're going to be behind me on this one. Right. So it will read effectively, and to rescind or otherwise annul the decision of the Resources Committee, item 17, 20th of June, to close Glamis Hall from the 1st of January 2015 on the grounds that the Council accepts that there might have been errors in the procedures giving rise to that decision, and any other reason you might like to think of. And to refer the question of closing Glamis Hall to Resources Committee on the 16th September, with directions to that committee that the Council wishes Glamis Hall and the facilities provided there to remain open until at least November 2015, as was originally suggested by somebody about a year ago. And furthermore, and carrying on, no full stops or commas, because I'm a lawyer, and that the Council directs the Resources Committee to establish regular meetings of a joint working party at intervals of not more than 6 weeks, and to work with representatives of the users of Glamis Hall and use their joint best endeavours to formulate a joint action plan to save the hall and all the services it provides for the future. And that the joint working party...
Councillor Hawkes, can I just hold you for one moment? I think you're going into a proposal, but you're actually going into terms of reference, I think, for the work that need to be done.
No, it's a motion. Or an amendment to a motion.
It's a fairly long motion from where I'm sitting.
Well, Acts of Parliament are quite long or very short. Depends what you're trying to do with them.
Would you move on?
Yeah. And that the joint working party shall have regard to all the points arising from the document entitled Save Glamis Hall that's been distributed to all councillors, and, finally, that any proposals for the future of Glamis Hall and all the services provided shall be considered and determined by the full council. That's the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That amendment needs a seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't think of putting it in those words, but I do take Councillor Hawkes' point entirely that there is merit in spelling out, in referring back to the committee, exactly what is being done. I think this is actually an amendment to 4.2, probably. Yeah. And I think there is merit in spelling out, although I hope officers would have taken the feeling of the meeting, but it's always a good idea to have it written down that we should be making a clear commitment to give the space that I talked about, that space and time that I talked about earlier, and that we work with the action group. And that I take it to be the point of Councillor Hawke's amendment, and I'm happy to support that.
Thank you, Councillor Scarborough. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's really just wanting some points of clarity and information on Councillor Laura Lawman's contribution. I'm sorry she wasn't able over the weekend to read the papers.
Order, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
We're discussing this amendment now.
Right. The relevance of these points is that the impression given is that the building is in an imminent state of collapse, and therefore the 215 suggestion is really non-viable because of the potential expense. If she had had the time to read the excellent report in full from our surveyors,
Councillor Elliott,
she would have seen that
one moment, please. I need to bring you back to the proposal by Councillor Hawkes.
Right.
Please. Would you like to address that, or do you want to come back later?
I'll come back later. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You probably, having said that, you probably may not be able to if it's voted on. Councillor Patel. Were you wanting to talk on this? No? Okay, fine. Then we need to... Does anybody else want to talk on this amendment by Councillor Hawkes? Yeah. Yeah. Councillor Hawkes, for the purpose of clarity, I need to ask you whether you're referring to an amendment to 4.2, and if you are, do you have it written, or is it indeed 4.3? And if you are, do you have it written down so that the clerk can give it to me and I can read it out fully?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I have got the text here, most of it. The only thing really is whether it's 4.2 or 4.3, which I accept is a bit difficult because it's a question of whether you refer the decision back to committee or whether you rescind the decision and ask the Resources Committee to do it again. It doesn't seem to be very different to me. Maybe from the Council's point of view, you might get away with rescinding the decision and that might get you off the hook with a judicial review. On the other hand, it might not. I think probably from the Council's point of view, it's an amendment, say, to 4.2. Yeah, 4.2. I'll make it 4.2. And I'll just amend this slightly and hand it in. If it gets carried, it won't, of course, but never mind.
Councillor Scarborough, it does bring me to the point. Are you happy to second that as the amendment to 4.2?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I took it to be an amendment to 4.2 because it refers to the reference back. So, yes, I'm entirely happy to second it.
Okay. So now we need to produce that amendment.
I have clarification because so much has been said and we tossed and turned around on this one. As far as I'm aware, and please put me right, Mr. Mayor, if I'm incorrect, 4.2 is what we're voting on, is what is written in the papers.
No, we now have a potential amendment to 4.2 by Councillor Hawkes.
Sorry,
we now have ladies and gentlemen, please. We now have an amendment being proposed by Councillor Hawkes to 4.2, and I'm going to ask him to read it.
As written, or what is going to
say?
Well,
it'll be an amendment to 4.2, so it'll contain the elements of 4.2 and then be extended.
I'm biding time so I can write out the right words so I can understand, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. While my colleague is writing his notes, can I also request another recorded vote, please?
You can indeed. Do we have the 7? Again, please. Please show. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Hawkes.
You'd like me to read this out gently in full and then hand it in?
Yes, please. You can read it out with your...
Okay, well, so we're saying that we resolve to agree to receive the petition and determine... Yeah, we're going to receive the petition, aren't we? No problem there, right. Okay. So it's 4.2 we're saying. So it's... and to refer back the decision of the Resources Committee, item 17, so on the grounds that the Council expects that there may have been errors in the process giving rise to that decision. That's not really essential. These are the main bits. And to refer the question of closing Glamis Hall to Resources Committee on the 16th September, with directions that the committee that the Council wishes Glamis Hall and the facility provided there to remain open until at least November 2015, and that the Council directs the Resources Committee to establish regular meetings of a joint working party at intervals of not more than 6 weeks, and to work with representatives of the users of Glamis Hall and use their joint best endeavours to formulate a joint action plan to save the hall and all the services it provides for the future, and that the joint working party shall have regard to all the points arising from the document entitled Save Glamis Hall for All that has been distributed to all councillors, and that any proposal for the future of Glamis Hall and all the services shall be considered and determined by the full council. That's the
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll take the recorded votes for this one. Ainge, as we know, is absent. Aliborn is absent. Councillor Bailey, for or against? Abstain. Councillor Byrne is absent. Councillor Bell? Against. Councillor Blackwell? For. Councillor Carr? Against. Councillor Delacchia? Councillor Elliott? Councillor Emerson? Councillor Gough is absent. Councillor Graves? Against. Councillor Griffiths? Against. Councillor Harrington? Abstain. Councillor Hawkes? It's recorded, Councillor Hawkes. Councillor Henley? Councillor Higgins? Councillor Holliman? Councillor Laura Lorman? Councillor Graham Lorman? Councillor Maguire? Councillor Morell? Councillor Podgin is absent. Councillor B. Patel? Councillor M. Patel? Councillor Pursglove? Councillor Raymond? Councillor Scarborough? Councillor Simmons? Councillor Timms? Councillor Ward? Councillor Warwick is absent. Councillor Malcolm Waters? Councillor Veronica Waters? And Councillor Watts is absent.
15 and 11.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 14 against and 11.
Quiet, please. The motion is lost. The vote is 14 against and 11 for. Abstention were 1, 2, 3 abstentions.
Mayor, can I speak on the motion?
Which motion? The next one?
No, the motion, Paul Bell.
The motion on the paper, yes. Wait a moment. I have you on the list, Councillor Bailey. So next to speak is Councillor Patel.
Do you want to go first? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thank you all the users and supporters of the Glamis Hall. Adults community care is to my heart for many years. I'm involved in Pravasi Mineral for last 11 years. When I heard from County Council in 2010, we had no grants and we got 5 vehicles and 7 staff and a big building to run. I went to our users group, said, do we want to close it? They said no. So we said we have to find ways of finding revenues, and we did. We survived for last 4 years. So on this Mrs. Saunders' templates, I come to know, and I'm glad to read it, that you come to know, you are prepared to formulate a trust, and you are looking for some time to set it up and find the revenues to run it on an ongoing basis. This is the reality. We got Pravasi Mandal, Waka, Victoria Center. We all lost the prevention fund back in 2010, but we have to find the ways to keep it going. I appreciate that we are day center, not respite care. So that is the difference. You got expertise, you got dedicated staff, nicely run. But the problem is building. So I will vote for 4.2, but that means 16 September, the report is still underway. We will have some time to read it. And then 7th October will be the full council. So we will, the resources committee members will have yes or no says and fully debating on 16th September. And full council will have another say on 7th October. So don't think that it is completely over. But then again, I come back to that this is a county council matters. Wellingborough Council, when we had money, we kept it going. Now we have to find ways to or lobbying to the county council. They will set up their budget in October. So be prepared to lobby in county council. So, Mr. Mayor, I will be supporting 4.2. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patel. Councillor Harrington.
Well, I've forgotten what I was going to say now, Mr. Mayor. No, I haven't. I just wanted to reiterate, actually, that although I couldn't quite go along with 4.3, 4.2 is where I firmly sit on this one, because we understand that there's further information ready for us, or will be ready for us. It has been said, I believe earlier on, that it may not be ready in 14 days. If it's not, then we don't vote on it. But it will be ready, I'm sure. So if the information is there, we have a duty. We must hear all the relevant information before we make a final decision. We have a duty, therefore, that we must refer back, rediscuss the whole thing. I took offence at certain things that Mr. Garvey said earlier on. I care about people in Wellingborough very, very much. I have served Wellingborough on county originally and locally for 23 years, and I've done that because I care about the people of Wellingborough, and I've certainly given service an awful lot longer than he has. But we do have a care for the community of Wellingborough. I don't want to shut Glamis Hall either, and it's called Glamis Hall, I'm told, not Glamis, but anyway, Glamis Hall. I don't want to see it shut either. The further information that we get may decide there's more reason why we should close it, but it may be that there's very good reason why we shouldn't close it. And so we need all the information first, and we should refer it back so that we can rediscuss the whole thing. And that's why I certainly support 4.2. It also has been said, quite a few other people have said, well, is it the responsibility of the county council or is it Wellingborough Council? Well, it's our responsibility now, because years ago we accepted that responsibility and adopted it. So we have a responsibility to you. So we're certainly responsible for the services. Whether the building stays or not, I don't know. We haven't heard the further report. But we know that we're responsible for the services, whether it be at Glamis Hall or whether it be elsewhere. We shall know when we know all the relevant information. It was said earlier on that the building is unfit. I'm not sure it is unfit. If it was unfit, we'd have closed it a year ago, so I don't think it's that bad. But I would like to emphasise that whether we're responsible for the building or for the services, it's the services we're responsible for. And if we aren't able to keep Glamis Hall, and I say if we're not able to keep it open, then we must find other places within Wellingborough, the same sort of area where the services can be operated from. I think that we must refer it back. We have to refer it back. And I do applaud all the people here. They've really put up a great job, and it's not been easy for them. It's not been easy for the speakers to come and speak either. And I think they've done tremendously well. Well done, all of you. We owe them a responsibility. And I use that word responsibility. We are responsible for the services, if not the building, the services. So we must refer the issue back, and there we can make our final assessment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harrington. Councillor Bailey.
Time's getting on, Mr. Mayor, and I really do think everything that could be said has probably been said, but I wish just to speak in support of the original proposal, which is basically 4.2, because I believe if you don't support that now, the original decision to close it will stand, so I don't think many of us want that to happen. So I would just ask the leader, though, when he replies to at the end of the debate, which is hopefully quite soon, that he will assure us that on this occasion it will be a recommendation to the Council and not a resolution, and that all members will be forwarded and supplied, whether they're on the committee or not, with all the information. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I think I might propose that the motion be put when you stop listening, Mr. Mayor, to the Chief Executive. I've just proposed that the motion be put, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Elliott.
I'm supposed to ask for a second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to second Councillor Bailey's proposal, as I believe a number of members wish to make comments. I do agree we've been here a long time, and I'll therefore try and be short and brief. This again raises the issue, really, of the whole process. I might well have been in favour of this recommendation if it hadn't been for what happened at the previous Resources Committee. This, unfortunately, now makes me doubtful of how it will proceed. I think Councillor Laura Lawman's comments were very revealing, because essentially I think the information given to councillors was redacted from the report by the surveyors, because as she was quoting the figure of over 300,000 for a 10-year period, when in fact they were talking about 133 for a 10-year period. And I think that kind of misdirection has created a problem for us, which is what, for me, makes it important that the original motions should have been accepted, but I'm prepared to hope it will go ahead. The second point, actually, is the thing I didn't say, is this is clearly a very good day centre. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a social care professional. I was employed now on a voluntary basis, and I've seen a lot of such services, and the comments I've heard and the people I've met who attend there gives me a great deal of confidence, and I think we should be very proud that we can provide something that many people find difficult. I'm aware some of these services are provided in some of the other parts of the county. I think Councillor Pursglove is probably aware of services provided in Corby which may have similarities. So I will be voting against this because the original process was severely flawed. Unfortunately, the consultation process didn't follow any of the normal guidelines of how you consult with vulnerable adults. And I have concerns that there has been perhaps a railroading process. I decide the answer and then put it to the working party and to the committee to make the decision you want. I will therefore be voting against this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I may have heard a moment or two ago that actually Councillor Bailey asked for the motion to be put. Do you have a seconder for that, Councillor Bailey? Councillor Higgins.
I'm just wondering though whether I should declare an interest in this, because there's been a lot of talk about the poor and elderly, unless I'm poor and elderly, I may have to declare an interest.
Thank you. So we are now going to vote on whether the motion should be put. All those in favour of the motion, it has to be. Is this a recorded vote? No? Okay. All those in favour that the motion be put.
No. Leader has This would only be new speakers. You can tell them you've got only three more.
Okay, I've just got, and what I'm going to do is a little bit of prudence here. I've got 3 more speakers, and then I'm going to ask for the vote on the motion. So the next speaker, I'm sorry, yes, it is 3 more speakers. Councillor Hawkes is back again, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is really more, I think, a point of information, and it may be that you will want to direct it to our solicitor, because what we haven't actually spoken about or considered is the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is the impending judicial review, which I understand, and again, this is where I'm going to ask the information. The information is, where are we? Where have we got to? What should we best do? And does it make any difference to this judicial review whether we go with 4-2 or 4-3? Because judicial review, as most members know, is a very powerful weapon that can be used by the courts, and they're using it more frequently. I won't mention too much about the recent decision in Cambridge that cost the poor council a rather lot of money. And I do understand that the same solicitors are probably acting for the, I was going to say Red Hill Grange, dear oh me, for the Glamis Hall. So it's a point of information, Mr. Mayor. I think because there is potentially expensive proceedings ahead, or are expensive proceedings ahead, and any money that is spent by either side will finish up in the pockets of my learned friends, I'm sure we could find something better to do with it. So what's going to be, if the lawyer can advise, what is our best bet to satisfy as far as we can the people of Wellingborough and save our money on judicial review, unless, of course, it's gone too far and we can't stop it now? That's a question.
Thank you. I'm going to ask our legal advisor to comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Council is in the process of taking legal advice. It isn't appropriate to discuss any legal advice in open session, as it is legally privileged. The judicial review has not yet been, it has just been, we've had the initial letter, there hasn't been any formal proceedings as such, and members can, it'll be taken forward when members' decision is made this evening.
Thank you.
No, Mr. Mayor, I'm not asking for what Council's opinion might be. I'm just asking, can we be told, before we make a decision now, which is the safest?
Councillors, I think you've had the answers, that the Council believes it has taken all the appropriate steps and complied with the legislation, and will continue to comply. We need to move on. Councillor Holliman.
Mayor, I think somewhere throughout this process we seem to have lost sight of what this council was proposing to undertake. The resources meeting of the 16th of September was pre-arranged before this paperwork was circulated, and it was due to serve a purpose, which was to look at how we were going to accommodate the outcomes of the individuals that were using Glamis Hall, to ensure that a continued care provision was being provided for. So the council is being portrayed as some kind of care, we don't care about the people, we don't care about the facility. We do. That's why we're looking to achieve similar outcomes in a building that's fit for purpose. Of course, in light of the information that has been received by us over the weekend, of course, it's appropriate that we do take a moment to reflect. I think that's only prudent. I do find it slightly odd that our Labour colleagues have only just decided this afternoon that they're going to take this course of action when they were party to the Resources Committee of a couple of weeks ago, and none of the concerns that have been highlighted about the robust nature of that meeting, or indeed there have been some allegations that there was impropriety at meetings being made by members, which I think is completely disrespectful. And I would like to stand by officers and the way in which they go about their work. They're professionals. They're paid to do a job. They're paid to be impartial. There's absolutely no way our officers would deliver to us an opportunity which they want us to take. We make the decisions in this council. We're the ones who have to stand by those decisions, and we work from officers' best impartial professional advice. There's been aspersions being made on officers today, which I think are completely out of order. I think it's being politically motivated as well. You're a disgrace, Mr. Garvey. Total disgrace. You do an injustice to the Labour group. You're doing injustice to the hard-working, good Labour members of this council. Since you've come on the scene with an agenda for next year's general election, which you've actually put upon us in statutory meetings.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. What's this got to do with the question?
Well, it's got a lot to do with the question.
Councillor Holliman, can I
would you kindly sit down, Councillor Scarborough?
Councillor Holliman, just listen to me for a moment, please. Please stay with the subject matter. Thank you.
Certainly. So, if you don't like what you're hearing, would you like to leave?
Mr. Mayor, the speaker should be addressing you, Mr. Mayor.
And as a member of the public, I'm not kicking them out.
Please.
If you don't like what you're hearing in a democratic debate, leave.
Councillor Holliman. Councillor Holliman, sit down, please.
Process.
Mr. Garvey, please sit down and stay quiet. I asked you to stay quiet and be respectful at the beginning. Stay there. You have your opportunities. Do you have anything else to say, Councillor Holliman? Please wrap up. Thank you.
I'd like to apologise to the Mayor and the office of Mayor, but unfortunately I can't witness any more of this nonsense.
Thank you. Councillor Purscliffe.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because all members in this chamber regularly complain about the fact that people don't get involved in politics. We complain about low turnouts in elections. We complain about the fact that people don't come and watch the debates here. And it's interesting, I think, that we've got so many people turned up tonight. 10,000 people signed a petition, and I think we need to take real note of that. I'm really frustrated I wasn't able to attend the last meeting when this was discussed. I would love to have been able to take part in the debate, but unfortunately work commitments meant that I wasn't able to be here. But I stood on a listening platform, and I'm proud of that. And I think that there is something that the leader could do right now that would really help matters in this debate. Because we do owe it to local people to look at all the options. People have taken the time to put this documentation together, to put a proposal before us, and I believe that that needs to be given due care and attention. And I don't think that that can be done within a 2-week window. It just isn't possible for members to look at all the information that's being brought before us, information that we didn't have previously when these decisions were made. And actually, as a member, there is nothing worse than having late papers thrust in front of you to make a decision at a committee meeting. And I do think that there is a genuine concern that arises from this, with this 16th of September deadline, because I could see that happening. I've seen it happen on too many occasions in the past where we get the late papers and we're asked to make a decision. We shouldn't rush this. This isn't about making cheap political points. It really, really isn't. We need to get the right decision. That needs to take precedence over any other nonsense. We owe it to local people to listen to what they have to say, and I really do hope that the leader might stand up and say that we will put this to an even later committee meeting to look at this in proper detail, make sure all the information can be taken into account, so that all members of this council can make a proper and fully informed decision. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm going to ask the Deputy Mayor to make his comments now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm obviously speaking as a councillor. I'd like to add my thanks to all the speakers tonight. They were very eloquent and passionate, and I learnt something, and I'd like to echo the comments that it's nice to see people being involved in local politics. So often that gallery is empty, and it's a shame. I will speak as a councillor who's attended Glamis Hall on a number of occasions, particularly for the very enjoyable and successful Christmas and summer parties. On those visits, between Councillor Laura Lorman and myself, I think we have spoken to just about every guest. So we've been able to see the spirit and camaraderie of those attending and how much it means to them and the atmosphere they create. I've also seen and recognised the wonderful work done by the staff who look after all the attendees very well and are obviously appreciated. I also served on the working party, but not on the resources committee, and those that know me will attest that if there's a question to be asked and a challenge to be made, I'm quite prepared to do so. The group, which was cross-party, made a thorough investigation of the situation and the opportunities and options based on our officer reports. And some of the officers seem to be involved with Glamis as long as some of the guests, I think. So know it well. We looked at all the services offered, the alternatives, the needs of the clients and the building itself, as well as several options for locations such as Queen's Hall and the Wendell Centre. So I think it's with a very heavy heart that I find we've arrived at this position. It's apparent that the needs of the clients have changed and become more complex over the years, as many have got older and stayed with us. And I think it's actually to the Council's credit that despite it being a service that it did not have to run, nor a service that was in its normal expertise, it's expanded its offering to cater for those growing needs. This meant demanding more of the staff as well, of course. And there we have some of the issues. We have to ask ourselves, in this time of extreme financial pressure, is it a service we can continue to subsidise so heavily? We had submissions that indicated the true cost of the service to be about £75 per person per day. Obviously, outside most people's reach, even with personalised budgets that are available now. Should we be running such specialised service when there are other diverse experienced providers who offer them, possibly more competitively and with greater resilience? And of course, the demands and therefore the cost is growing. We know that Glamis Hall is basically a sports hall, and to me an unsightly, forbidding building that's come to the end of its useful life without considerable investment. It's not a building we could take pride in, even if we can of the services offered. Is it right to spend good money after bad, especially when it's taxpayers' money? All of the reports, and there are more commissioned, show failings in the building and in its equipment, such as the heating. For this reason, it's not feasible to just hand the building over to other providers, even if we legally could. This was a major stumbling block in the tender process we undertook, which received no offers. I also appreciate the argument made about respite opportunities for carers, and in that, in some cases, Glamis Hall enables people to work rather than be a full-time carer and have to claim benefits, the advantages to all of us of which are obvious. All the more reason to work with partners to ensure continuance of a service, albeit at another venue. This is all why the second part of the resolution, which seems to have been overlooked in all this, is so important. We're talking about the original Council recommendation. Council must work, and is doing so, in partnership with the other providers in the area who are expert at providing services to ensure sustainable day centre provision for those that want it. These are all individuals and have differing needs and wants, so one answer will not fit all, but we must put ourselves in the position to offer the best fit possible, recognising there are some groups who socialise together, and we should include in that all the suggestions from the working committee. I don't have a relative who is a client, though I know several users, but if I did, I don't think I'd want their daycare to be in a building that's poorly laid out and patently not fit for purpose. I would wish them to be in a modern, cosy, warm, well-appointed facility suited to their needs, staffed by people fully qualified and covered by the Care Quality Commission, which Glamis Hall is not, and with appropriate medical and catering facilities. I would also want to ensure that it's with a sustainable and reliable organisation fully funded. The reports we received led me to concur with the rest of the Working Party and the Council that we must move away from Glamis Hall, though I'm happy to accept that satisfactory arrangements may not be complete by the end of the year, which is why a further report was always going to be made to Resources Committee, and I understand that a number of these are already prepared or about to be received. This could quite conceivably include an investigation into some tapered funding to establish new resources, and it could conclude that the arrangements are not yet in place for closure. We all need to wait for these reports to assess properly where we go from here. I'm sure that the few other users of the hall who we did consider in the Working Party can easily be accommodated elsewhere, and new fit-for-purpose changing rooms for the football, including some community facilities, can be constructed on the site. We should all wish to move forward together to better facilities, not just a rehash of outdated ones. So whilst there's been no material change in circumstances since the original decision, I'm happy to support option 2, as this enforces there is still work to do and options to explore, and this provides the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to ask Councillor Graves to wrap up this debate now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm conscious of the time and the amount of words that have been spoken. I'll try to be briefer than perhaps I would have been. I also commend the Action Group. The work they've done is commendable. I mean, I've not seen an amount of work gone into a document like that, although I, like a lot of people, arrived Saturday and I haven't read every word. I've gone through it, but full credit to them and the signatures they've raised. Having said that, Mr. Mayor, pretty well everything we've heard tonight, we've heard before and have debated in this chamber. I haven't heard anything really new, Mr. Mayor. The central issue remains the building. Sadly, the Action Group choose to ignore its condition. They've even tonight criticised reports, and I can see head shaking now. Nobody's made this up. We've been working on this as a working group for 2 years. We've seen reports. Thank you. We've seen reports. I saw a report from the staff, which will probably come forward at a later date, where one of the members complained she had to stand with a bucket collecting rainwater coming through from the roof. Now, is that suitable? If we were a commercial enterprise, well, you laugh. I'm only telling you what I've seen written. And would we allow that if we were running a commercial enterprise? No one has also mentioned the question of repairs in the building. You've put it to one side. Now, if you want to retain the status quo to November, with winter coming, almost certainly there'll need to be some repairs. We know that asbestos is in the building, but we know that if we go in there to do work, it'll take weeks because the preparation, the special protection that goes on will mean you'll have a closure. What will happen to the clients then? Where will they go? No one's come up and said anything about that. Councillor Morell made the point that originally it was a day centre, and I can identify with that. It's moved, now transformed into a day care centre, and there is a subtle difference. It does take extra care, extra staff, and although our staff are quite adequate and capable of dealing with that, it is not the ideal building. I'm sorry. Everybody's in denial. There should be breakout rooms for people with dementia. The decor should be looked at. The activities, even the diet. Just read what the Alzheimer's Society say about care for dementia. About 6 years ago, I'm not sure exactly the date, the council put the services of Glamis Hall out to tender. 2 professional organisations expressed an initial interest. One was Age Concern, or Age UK as they are now, and the other was Serve. In the event, and there was the carrot of a sizable grant from the council to get rid of the service, and I put it in those terms. Neither of those organisations took it up, on the basis that the building was not suitable, the overheads were too high, there were ongoing service charges, and the long-term costs were exorbitant. Now, I do know that's a fact because I was Chief Executive Serve at the time when it was looked at. Nothing's changed. That still exists. We are here, Mr. Mayor, to discuss the petition, really, otherwise we are going over old ground. You talk about 180 clients. I believe we're near 150 at the moment, and a few of those, probably 20, are already in sheltered accommodation, and we understand don't actually require the same services as a lot of the other clients. In other words, they have lounges in the accommodation they're in, they can get their meals, and that's taken into consideration. So we're talking about a small number. Now, I will be the first person to say that small number is important. My mother was in care. I know the problems. We're not belittling that situation. We've also made a statement, there is no other day care facility for the elderly in Wellingborough. This is simply not true. There is. All right.
Quiet.
Sorry, Mr. I'm not here to answer questions, am I?
Indeed, you're not. Council. Carry on, Council.
Three members, please. 3 officers from this council have spent a considerable amount of time checking out what is available. Now, maybe we can't put everybody under one roof, but I'm pretty sure that those clients that are left could be put into accommodation in groups of 2, 3, 10, comfortable accommodation. And I tell you what, if it was my mother in Glamis Hall, with the condition it's in, I wouldn't be saying save the building. I'd be saying what can I do now to make sure that she has a service that is sustainable and she's happy in. Mr. Mayor, Councillor Elliott got on his hobby horse about health and well-being. He can't resist. He comes to this chamber, he mentions it. Well, can I say that, and I'm sure he'll know, he claims a health professional, the County Council just this month have cut all of their funding for daycare. They announced 2 years ago, and the lady from Age UK can confirm this, I'm sure, because their funding has also been affected. I've spoken to their chief executive. County Council said we're not going to support buildings-based care. Instead, we want the money to go further and look after more people with a wider range of activities. The Health and Wellbeing Board are in discussions at this moment with the Alzheimer's Society in the hope that we will have a Singing for the Brain weekly session in Wellingborough. That will be 20, 30 people. We're also talking to dementia friends about certain activities we can take on there. We are looking at ways of providing a wider range, which will completely nullify the question of loneliness and engagement with other people for a much wider audience. Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I cannot believe that Glamis Hall is the most suitable option for all our residents. There has to be better options. Councillor Lorman said it, I'm saying it. I'm not going to say tonight where those people, but people are coming forward. They're saying, we'll take some clients. People who've not necessarily provided daycare before are prepared to talk to us. This is why I believe that the document that's been prepared by the Action Group deserves to be read and discussed thoroughly, and I believe that these options that are coming forward need to be discussed. I actually do think 2 weeks is long enough. We've had to deal with things quicker than that, and that's why, Mr. Mayor, I'm supporting refer back to look at all the options to make a very clear decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grace. Would the leader like to sum up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll get one thing out of the way straight away. This was not an emergency debate. It wasn't a panic debate, Councillor Henley. This was an opportunity to bring the petition forward, as I met the representatives, to a separate meeting. If we'd kept to strictly what the law was, Mr. Mayor, we wouldn't be debating this to September, October next year, but it's actually going to be October the 7th. I think it's important to have this debate tonight and to see the information we received. I've learned so much. I've learned so much more tonight. So it makes sense to support 4.2. Now, it doesn't say, and when we get back to 4.2 and we get back to resources, We can't stop any action that's going forward. We have a proposal from the Save the Glamis Hall Committee. We have 2 other organisations interested. We have to look at all of them. All the reports which are going to be circulated to every council member will be out when they go out next week, ready for resources. The only report which isn't ready, which will be ready by then, is the independent review of the service which has been carried out by health professionals from Coventry and Warwickshire Health Authority on the service at Glamis Hall. That's the only report we're waiting. So every councillor will have every report. They will have a copy of, say, the Glamis Hall, the initial proposals from our organisations. So, Councillor Elliott, we're not doing anything different. And let's get this clear. There's nothing to hide, so it's going to be an open debate in this council chamber. It could be the same arrangement, but it will be in here. Any recommendation will go to full council. My colleague who suggests we defer this to the next resources after September, well, I think that's November, could be December. I don't think anybody in this room wants to delay it any further than that. So I think, Mr Mayor, I support forward to it, and I suggest we go forward. It still allows us to look at everything properly and then come back and make a proper recommendation to the council. I so move.
Will the leader accept one question?
I'm happy to, Mr Mayor.
Indeed.
Thank you. Now, I've been greatly reassured by the leader's assurances, first of all, that the Resources Committee will be conducted in public, and that what will come out will be, one way or another, a recommendation to full council. Those, I think, address many of the concerns that I would have about the reference back. My only remaining concern with this with a question. Given that we have referred back this decision, may I take it that all closure planning is now on hold, or will be on hold if we pass this tonight?
As it stands at the moment, Glamis Hall is earmarked for closure on the 31st of December. In a sense, nothing's going to change because September we're going to look at the final decision anyway. So in a sense, you could say you're on hold, but it's still got to be a final decision by council on the 7th of October. Mr Mayor, I think we should have a recorded vote for this so there's no misunderstanding for anybody.
You have 7.
I need 7. Would you put your hands up if you support a recorded vote? Thank you very much. Thank you. So we go through the same procedure again. Let's remind ourselves what the motion is. 4.2, refer the decision to close Glamis Hall back to Resources Committee on the 16th of September. Excellent. So that's what we're voting on. Can I now record the votes? Councillor Ainge and Alibon, we know, are not here. Councillor Bailey? Councillor Byrne is away. Councillor Bell?
4.
Councillor Blackwell? 4. Councillor Carr? 4. Councillor Delakia? 4. Councillor Elliott? Councillor Emerson? 4. Councillor Gough is away. Councillor Graves? 4. Councillor Griffiths has left the room. Councillor Harrington? 4. Councillor Hawkes? 3. .2, Councillor Hawkes. Shall we just remind you of that? Let me read to you again. 4.2, refer the decision to close Glamis Hall back to Resource Committee on the 16th of September. Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Henley. Councillor Higgins. Councillor Holliman. Councillor Laura Lawman. Councillor Graham Lawman. Councillor Maguire. Councillor Morell. Party Jundra is away. Councillor B. Patel. Councillor M. Patel. Councillor Pursglove. Councillor Raymond. Councillor Scarborough. Councillor Simmons. Councillor Timms. Councillor Ward. Councillor Warwick is away. Councillor Malcolm Waters. Councillor Veronica Waters. Thank you. And Councillor Watts is away. The resources meeting. What do we have, guys?
25 for 4.2. Ask them to remain seated until the finish.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please remain seated or leave the room, of course. The motion is carried and the vote for is 25 with 2 against. I want to take this opportunity of thanking all of the public for coming here. I know it's been very sensitive to a lot of you. You will have heard earlier in prayers that we lost my mother-in-law through dementia just this weekend, so I'm fully aware of those concerns. But we do have to find a way of delivering the service, and I'm sure that resources will move towards that. In closing, can I remind you that the resources meeting of the 16th of September will be a public meeting, and those of you wishing to attend can do so. And indeed, you may speak, subject to the normal rules and regulations. For the time at 9:25, I close this meeting. Thank you all very much and have a safe trip home.
Ladies and gentlemen,